President Biden is making good on his promise to visit Baltimore after the catastrophic bridge collapse. Today, he confirmed that he'll be in the city next week, and he will arrive just as the process of clearing the wreckage to reopen the port has begun. NBC News' Tom Costello has the details for us.
Arriving at the site of Baltimore's bridge collapse, the biggest floating crane on the East Coast, able to lift 1,000 tons for one of the biggest salvage missions ever. Just part of a flotilla now en route, including the crane that lifted the Miracle on the Hudson plane out of the river. In all, 7 floating cranes, 10 tugboats, 9 barges, 8 salvage vessels, and 5 Coast Guard boats. 8,000 local jobs are waiting.
We need to clear the channel and open the vessel traffic to the port, because the health of the Maryland economy and the national economy depend on it.
On the water, the Army Corps of Engineers is using underwater drones and sonar to map the precise location of the wreckage, then lay out a coordinated salvage plan for divers.
How we can cut it up into the pieces we need to be able to lift.
NTSB investigators still interviewing crew members and gathering evidence on the crushed cargo ship, now trapped under the weight of twisted steel, a piece of highway lying on top. So take a look at the front of the ship, at the bow of the ship, and you see that piece of steel that's lying across it. That's 3,000 to 4,000 tons. That is so heavy, it's pushing the bow into the water, down into the bottom of the river, and then it's lifting the stern up out of the water. Below the waterline, the river depth is roughly 50 feet. To reopen the port, the cranes will lift massive chunks of steel, concrete, and sunken cargo containers, some hazardous. All of it must be gone. The sand on the bottom completely clean.
What an incredible operation there. There is a ton of work to be done to get the bridge replaced. But before that can happen, the president has to convince Republicans in Congress to actually fund the project. And that battle, as you can imagine, in this current climate is just starting to heat up. Basil Smikle, Democratic strategist and former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party, and Susan Del Percio, MSNBC political analyst and a veteran political strategist, are here to discuss this with us. So, Susan, there's not a surprise that this is kind of heating up already. In fact, the Hill reporter that's been covering this had a really interesting quote from Republican Congressman Ralph Norman, which was basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I find it kind of very interesting that there's always a fight on Capitol Hill, but this now is happening.
Yeah, and I guess in some ways we shouldn't be surprised, because everything is such a fight on Capitol Hill these days. But let's not forget, we are the United States of America. This is, I mean, you talk about something that needs to be done for the health of the country. Economics,
right?
Like, you want to have money to spend. Like, you
yeah,
need
why would the Republicans want to be fighting over this right now?
Because they just want to fight. That's all it comes down to.
Right. So, Basil, Republicans are trying to pick up a Senate seat. This doesn't seem, certainly in Maryland, at least in November, this doesn't seem like good politics. Larry Hogan, a wildly popular governor, he actually has a shot, but he is about to be hamstrung by his fellow Republicans haggling over how to pay for a new bridge or even this cleanup effort.
Right, and I think what were you saying at the top, there was a number 8,000 jobs potentially, most, if not many of them, I would imagine, are union jobs as well. It does seem to hamstring a potential, well, a candidate that, could use this as part of the platform. But, we're also in a time, and I have to say this, we're also in a time when the city, Baltimore City's young African-American mayors had to go on TV to talk about the fact that he's essentially being called the N-word and being told that, or having to refute claims that because of his race, that's why the bridge fell. That's where we are in America today. And when you consider that kind of climate, it is no surprise that you have people in Congress that should just, in a sort of knee-jerk reaction, fix this problem. And go to the aid of a very important city in this country, not to mention the fact that there have already been stories about challenges with the supply chain because of this bridge collapse. And so if you have voters that are concerned about inflation, this is one way to actually address that issue that is fixable in maybe not the short term, but it is fixable. Why they choose not to do it or not to speak on it, is just a sign of the times.
Yeah, and you bring up a really important point, Basil. I'm sure Biden is confident that he can sway some lawmakers. But when Congress returns, when you look at the totality of what Congress has to do, outstanding issues to take up like aid to Ukraine, obviously border funding is going to be a big one as well. What are the chances that getting this port up and running, or getting the funding that is needed for this port to get back up and running, is going to be lost?
Sometimes, and I say this a lot with mayors and governors, and to some extent, perhaps presidents and Congress can do this in some way, ask for forgiveness and not permission. Just give the support, give the aid. And if you need to find a way to backtrack and get, the kind of permission and the regulations somehow suspended, even temporarily, to be able to get this through, it is worth it. I can't see a scenario in which this isn't worth it and should not be done. So sometimes just using the power of the office, and particularly if you're a governor and a mayor, using the powers of your office to get projects like this done, and the money and the support for it done, ask for forgiveness and not permission, that might be the way to go.
Meanwhile, you've got the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who's prioritizing impeaching Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, something that he wants a full trial. Obviously, he's not going to get that in this current Senate, but nonetheless, this is what he is prioritizing as one of his main things when they come back. You have to look at this and just wonder what the Republicans are thinking about their priorities and whether or not he's just throwing a bone to his base.
Well, and I think that's what he's doing. This is an easy one for Speaker Johnson to play to the ultra-conservative folks like the Marjorie Taylor Greenes. Better having them yell out, let's impeach Secretary Mayorkas, than let's dump Speaker Johnson. So right. I think that's a fight he's willing to put up there, because at the end of the day, he has no control over it. And I do think he wants to get certain things done, like Ukraine funding, and he's going to have a problem with that within his conference. So might as well chum the waters as much as he can.
Baz, I want to turn really quickly to the presidential campaign for a moment, and the Biden campaign actively courting Nikki Haley voters. What is your take on that strategy? Is that even a significant strategy or more symbolic?
I think it's a significant strategy. Look, it's not going to be easy. The thing that the Biden campaign has as a huge advantage right now is the money advantage. It takes a lot of resources to get a voter to the polls that's already reluctant. They're reluctant by nature of the fact that they're likely Republican and, they may not want to vote for Donald Trump. But the question is, do they actually want to go out and vote for Joe Biden? I think there's an opportunity there that's going to take resources. It's going to take a lot of what we would consider sort of this hand-holding, but it is worth it, because any vote matters on the margins in a race that so many of us still think is going to be tight. But when you consider the money advantage that we've all been talking about, this is where that money advantage does make a difference.
Susan, in about 30 seconds, what do you think of that campaign strategy? Does it matter? Is it going to make a difference at all?
Well, it is important, because we know where those Nikki Haley voters went in 2020. They went for Joe Biden. Those were that 5% of Republicans and right-leaning independents that voted for Biden. The question is, can they get them to do it again? Because he needs those votes. And so, yes, they should go after them, but they should do it through different surrogates. It doesn't help telling a Republican to vote for Joe Biden. You have to tell a Republican why it's dangerous
to vote for Donald Trump.
Exactly.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.